Welcome to Blue Book Citation Module number 4, which covers Chapter 4, Parallel Citations. A parallel citation is a citation that contains location information from more than one source for a case. For a quick reference, see B4.1.3 in the Blue Book at page 11. More in-depth guidance is under Rule 10.3 on page 95. You should read both of these closely in order to get a clear idea of how and when to use parallel citations. Also, your constant friend through citations will be tables 1.1 and 1.3 in the back of your book. These tell you which reporters to cite to and how for each court in each state. Here's an example of what a parallel citation might look like. This example cites first to the official state reporter, cleverly called State Reporter here, and then the regional reporter, which also has an equally savvy name. A state reporter is the official reporter that is published by the government of the state. A regional reporter may cover many states and is not published by the government. If you have to cite to both the official state reporter and regional reporters, the citation to the state reporter should come first. But when do you have to cite to both, or only just to one or the other? Imagine that you are writing a brief for some other document that you have to file in court, and you wish to cite to cases within that brief. If you are filing that document in a state court, and if the local citation rules of your state require it, then your citations to court opinions within that state should include both the state reporter and the regional reporter. If the state has adopted a public domain format, then you cite to both the public domain information and the regional reporter. But if you are filing a document in federal court, then you only need to cite to the regional reporter. If your case is from a federal court, including the U.S. Supreme Court, then you will not need any parallel cites. The same applies if you were filing a document in state court, but wish to cite a case that was decided by a different state's court. It'll be easiest to understand all of this if I provide a few examples of each situation. Now, the easiest scenario will be where you are filing a document in federal court, or when you are filing a document in state court but wish to cite to a case that was decided in a different state. In those situations, as discussed in the previous slide, you cite only to the regional reporter. For example, imagine that you are writing a brief for a case to be filed in a federal court and wish to cite to a case called Gandalf v. Balrog. Since the case is in federal court, we don't cite to the Pennsylvania State Reports, which is the official state reporter of Pennsylvania. Instead, we cite to the Atlantic Reporter, which is the regional reporter and is abbreviated as A.2D. Here's another case in a different situation that would follow the same rules. Imagine that you're writing a brief to be filed in Maryland, but you want to cite to a case that was decided in Pennsylvania called Gothmog v. Ecthelion. If that was the situation, you would do the same exact thing. Only cite to the regional reporter. Now, let's imagine that we are writing a brief to be filed in Pennsylvania State Court, which is a state that does not require public domain format. Once again, you should look to Table 1.3 to see which reporters to cite to. If you wish to cite to a case named Ungoliant v. Telperion that was decided in Pennsylvania State Court, you would cite first to the official state reporter, which is Pennsylvania State Reports, and which is abbreviated as PA. Then, you would cite to the Atlantic Reporter, which here is abbreviated as A3D. Let's talk about the date parentheses at the end. Usually, you would want to cite to the name of the court issuing the decision, but since the highest court of Pennsylvania issued the decision in Ungoliant, you do not need to include the name of that court. Also, usually you would at least have the abbreviated name of the state. However, you do not include the state abbreviation if it is obvious from the name of the reporter. Here, the state is obvious from the name of the reporter, which is PA, so you can leave PA out of the parentheses at the end. Let's use another example. In the same scenario, imagine you want to cite to a case named Sheila v. Gamgee that was decided in Pennsylvania by the Commonwealth Court. In the parentheses here, you can see that PA was admitted because the state is still obvious from the official state reporter name. However, the court name is included because the Commonwealth Court is not the highest. Let's do an example of a state which requires public domain format instead of a state reporter. Table 1.3 lists all of the states in alphabetical order and will tell you whether your state requires public domain citation. If your state does require public domain format, then T1.3 should list the exact format required by your state. For example, this is all the information required by Oklahoma's public domain format. Now, let's imagine we're citing to an Oklahoma case called Barron v. Morgoth in a brief that we're filing in an Oklahoma court. The case was decided by the Oklahoma Supreme Court in 2002 and was assigned the number 122. We wish to pinpoint cite paragraph 13 of this opinion. This is what the citation would look like. Notice that the citation to the regional reporter looks just like it would if we were in a state that did not require public domain format. Also notice that there is no court information or date in the parentheses at the end of the citation. This is because the state's highest court heard this case, so we didn't have to provide the court's name. We also did not have to provide the name of the state in parentheses because that can be inferred from the postal code OK in the public domain citation. Finally, we could exclude the date in parentheses because we know the date to be 2002 from the public domain citation.